Great. We're live now. So, everyone, welcome to the fourth edition of the CS Placement Tales. We're from Changemaker Society, and today we have brought to you panelists from the 2024 PES University batch of Computer Science and Engineering. Today, we're going to have a discussion about placements, which is a very college concept and it's not familiar to most people. So, today we want to help you out.
As we all know, college placements is a very critical time for students as it sets the tone for the inception of their career. It is a phase which is filled with a lot of pressure and anxiety from all over the place. Hence, we have for you placement tales which could help you become familiar with the process of college placement.
So, we'll start with the introductions. First off, we have Rohan with us.
Hi guys, I'm Rohan Mehta from the CSE department, right now in 8th semester. So I'm interning right now at Bain and Company, and the conversion is based on my performance. And I also have a full-time offer at Deloitte. Other than these, both of them are consulting companies, and I'm working as an analyst there. So that's pretty much about the placements. In my college, I've done quite a lot of extracurriculars. So I was the head of Appex, which was the app development club at PES, and I was also the finance head for Aatmatrisha and the video editing lead for TEDx. So these were my extracurriculars in the college itself. Thank you.
Next, we have Rudransh.
Hi guys, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So hi guys, I'm Rudransh Kulkarni. I'm currently in my 8th semester of Computer Science and Engineering. So I was placed in late August 2023, and I've been placed in Baxter International. So Baxter International is a multinational healthcare company, and I'm in the R&D department, and I'll be working as an SD. So about my experience, I think I did a full stack web development internship with Cisco. I then went on to do some data analysis for PESU as an intern and then as an executive. I worked with Simplify Softtext Solutions as an app developer, and then for my summer internship, I did it at ISRO at the URL Satellite Center. And I think about regarding my projects, I don't think I did anything other than my capstone and the college course projects that you have to do at the end of the course. And that's what was on my resume as well for most of the interviews that I'd given. And yeah, regarding clubs, I joined a lot of clubs in my first year, worked for a lot of them, and eventually, fortunate for me, I was the student council head, the Aatmatrisha head in my third year, the ESL president, and also the director and founder of Appex PESU. But all these titles, although they sound fancy, I don't think they helped me much during my placement process. But I think everybody's experience is different. And yeah, that's pretty much about me. I think we'll discuss more about the placement process a little later.
Thank you, Rudransh. Now we have Medha.
Hi guys, I'm Medha Koppam. I'm currently in my 8th semester of Computer Science Engineering. I'm working as a technical intern at Couchbase India, which is a NoSQL distributed database company that is based off of the United States. And my internship it's been just 1 week in my internship so far. And I got placed through the college placement early August. And it's been a great learning experience so far. My interests have always been an amalgamation of software development with deep learning, purely because right from my first year, I was always looking for internship opportunities to upskill myself. And I started off as an app developer at a student startup, Pyramid Developers. So the idea was to idea of building something of my own with proper ideas that could solve real problems was something I found very interesting. And as as time passed, we had our Capstone project, and I was very interested also by the field of deep learning and particularly generative AI. So I was very interested in pursuing research in that area and practically applying those concepts to build software. So that is something I was very passionate about. And last year, I tried to strengthen my foundation in both of these with my internship at Rakuten India, which is a Japanese tech conglomerate. Over the summer, I interned as a backend developer working with database management concepts. And for 3 months, from October to December, I also tried learning more about generative AI through a deep learning project at Rakuten. And I've always believed that you learn a lot more, you learn a lot of your about soft skills and diversifying your skill set through college clubs. And like Rudransh, I think all of us, we joined so many different clubs in our first year, and initially it was just a way to have fun, but it did get quite we did learn quite a lot through the 3 years. I was also the head of student council for last year and the president of the entrepreneurship cell, and I think that helped me improve my communication and interpersonal skills a lot. So that's a bit about me.
Thank you, Medha. Next, we have Smriti.
Hi, I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Smriti. Again, I'm currently in my 8th sem doing computer science. I will be joining Fidelity Investments this month as an intern for the 5-month internship and then as an SDE there. They are an investment and financial goal planning company, predominantly active in the United States. So how like I landed up in Fidelity was, so 4th sem I had my internship with CDSMN, so that's Center for Data Science and Machine Learning in PES University, where my project was based on stock predictions using graph-based ML algorithms. This helped me a lot in clearing my interview, which followed in my 5th semester for Fidelity Investments. So I interned at Fidelity at the end of my 6th semester, which is the 2-month internship. So that's June and July. That converted to a PPO, and thus I'll be joining Fidelity coming month. Coming to projects, I have done a few projects which are full stack development related, a few projects which are ML based, like I mentioned, CVSA ML. So these things are like stuff that I put on my resume, and that helped me clear the one interview I gave. Clubs and extracurriculars, I was the vice president of the PES MUNSoC Society for 2 years. And I was also the head of outreach for the Changemakers Society for 2 years. So it's nice to be back here. Right now, I just finished TAing with for graph theory in my 7th semester. So yeah, I think like clubs, especially MUNSoC and CMS, really helped me for my interview because it taught me, like Medha mentioned, personality development. I think these clubs helped me build my personality and how to present myself before in a panel of interviewers, which further helped in my placements. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Smriti. And now we have Taher.
Hi, good evening, guys. My name is Taher. I'm currently placed at Epsilon and I got placed late August. I am currently gonna start an internship there within the next few weeks. So yeah, looking forward to that. Apart from that, I have worked at Idea Search Solutions and Synchro Systems, both of which were startups in my 4th semester and 6th semester as summer internships. So at Idea Search Solutions, I worked as a trainee engineer where I had to work on databases, mainly the Microsoft SQL Server, and we handle databases for an American fertility clinic called Win Fertility. And this is where I started learning and like unraveling my passion for data science. So this is where I initially started learning where my interest lies. And in my 6th sem, I worked at Synchro Systems, which was a HVAC company. And over there, we have a lot of sensors, and it's a lot about automation and understanding how data works when you're trying to automate things over the internet, and how you can control several different hardware things and understand how to work with them. So those were the 2 internships I have currently worked. For co-curricular work, I was the editor-in-chief of the PES Society, and I have also worked I have also worked at college fest level events such as Aatmatrisha and the Golden Jubilee Fest that was conducted at PS. So yeah, I have a lot of experience in working with teams, and a lot of these skills are developed during events in college. So uh, you guys should take interest in those if you want to develop those kind of skills. So yeah, apart from that, the projects that I have done were mainly course related, because I feel our course projects are pretty good to develop your skills in most fields. But apart from that, we've also done a capstone project in the field of basketball. And yeah, that's most about my college life and looking forward to the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Tahir. So now that we've all established that all of you like are parts of very reputed companies, the most tricky question comes here. How did you like land your jobs in your companies? And I'm pretty sure that's what everyone wants to know. So we'll start with your experiences and how, from being a normal college student to landing a job in a company. So we'll start with Rohan.
Okay, so first of all, I was not fully interested in proper coding, hard coding jobs, because through the 4 years, I understood that I could not do that for a long time. Saying that, I gave all the tests that came, around 30, 35 tests before Bain or Deloitte happened. So I was interested in Bain before itself. So our seniors, like my seniors, 2 years seniors to y'all, basically I spoke to them like 6, 7 months back itself, and I asked what Bain needs, what these consulting companies look at. And I knew, so Bain had like a different interview process where they have like a guesstimate and a case study that they give you. So I started like reading upon that and all of it because I was looking at Pain. But when like the placement started, it was mainly the tech companies that came first. I sat for all the tests because I thought, if Bain doesn't happen, then what? So I needed a backup. And so I gave all the tests. I didn't do much of lead code practice, unlike my other friends here, because they did like rigorous lead code practice. They were looking at technical jobs. So so I did a little bit of lead code just to pass some tests, and I got like two technical interviews, but I didn't pass them, obviously. And so when Deloitte happened, so I'd done my summer internship at Deloitte before, which did not get converted into PPO off campus. So when they came on campus, the Deloitte tag helped me a little bit there. And that interview was easy because they asked a lot about my extracurriculars. They were not looking to test my technical aspect because they knew I'd already worked in that company. So that was a little chill interview where they asked about what success means to me and other clubs. So that's where my soft skills, extracurriculars, all of that helped, because that's not a particularly a fully tech company. So that they're just not looking for your coding skills, DSA skills, OS or CN. They're also looking at how well you can talk, how well you can manage, collaborate with teams, because that's what happens in there. So Deloitte was a good, easy interview that happened. Bain as such, so the test itself is pretty hard. Like, it just has maths and English, but it's quite long. The case, there are little cases there, 5 cases, and you have to solve it in an hour. So that takes a lot of practice. So I'd done that a little bit like a month before, like when I knew that Bain is going to come. So after that practice, after I passed the test, the first interview was about a guesstimate. They give you a problem statement and you just have to guess a number around. So they gave me like, there's a T2 airport at Bangalore, and how many people would be coming. So I had to guess from the population how many flights would go. So they see the approach. They're not looking at the perfect number that they're looking at. And the second interview was about a case study that they're given. So it was like proper case study that they get from clients, and they were just seeing our problem solving approach. So that was mainly for these two companies. So these are a little bit of non-tech. It has a little bit of technical, like data analysis and all of it. There's no coding as such. So for these companies in specific, they do look at the extracurriculars, what I've done, how I speak. All of that is being looked at, which is not as important when you're trying for a fully technical role. So that was my experience, and college overall helped a lot. So it's very organized. You get the Google form, you have to fill it, you have to have a test, and then the interviews happen. So it's very open, transparent, and they help a lot. So that's cool. That's pretty much about my experience.
So I have like a question for you. So
Yeah.
so basically you like spoke about having an interest, and you said like you found like coding stuff a little
Yeah.
like difficult, right? So what do you like suggest? If should people like stick to their interest, like, or should they be little?
So I'll tell you how I found it not very interesting
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me. So I'd done an internship in my second year before the third year summer. In that summer, I'd done a fully coding internship. That was just 2 months, and I barely survived that internship. Like I was just imagining, if 2 months I'm not able to survive the proper like technical internship, then how am I going to like do a job in the same field? So you should try out and then come to a conclusion, not just, oh, I find coding hard, I can't do that. That's not my cup of tea. It's not like that. You have to try it and then come to a conclusion that it's not for me, it's meant for me, that way. Yeah, so my interest was developed because I had tried the other thing.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much. So next we'll have Rudransh.
Yeah. So coming to my placement experience, I mean, before I begin, I just wanted to, like, for everyone watching, I just wanted to tell everybody's placement experience is wildly different from each other. You can honestly take tips from seniors and peers, but don't expect yours to be a certain way, even if it's from a certain company that your senior has spoken to you about. So, I mean, I'm just saying that so that you're ready for your challenges. Like anything can happen, anything from college, anything from company. Your interviewer might be different from your friends. And another important thing that I saw, the mistake that I saw myself make and some of my friends make was missing opportunities. So, like, there are a lot of opportunities coming your way when you are in PS University, but like it's very easy to miss them. And I think, like most of us here, we were really busy with a lot of other things, and we did miss quite a few. And I think one simple thing that you can do not to miss these opportunities is just check your mails every day, because something or the other comes. And in my third year, I did not get an internship on campus, and many of these, I think at least half of them, I did not even apply because we were doing a bunch of things regarding clubs or Aatmatrisha or like Capstone. Or so just make sure you don't miss out on anything. Whatever comes along, just make sure you apply and write the test, whatever happens, because you after that it's not in your hands. Like I think, like someone mentioned here, it's a lot about luck. So yeah, coming to my experience specifically, again, I did not get any internship in my third sem. So there was third year, so there was no chance of a PPO. So in after my sixth sem in the summer, I did my internship through a referral at ISRO at the URL Satellite Center, and I think there we learned a lot, got to know a lot of people. But after that, I think around July end was when companies started coming to college, be it tier one, tier two, tier three. Mostly in the beginning, it's all tier ones, and they just come in. And I think I mean, I was placed on August 25th, and by then Baxter was the 35th. It was somewhere around 30th to 40th company that had come, and that experience also was like it was wild. Honestly, like a lot of things went down, but I think Mehta is laughing, so he knows because he knows what happened that day. But yeah, I don't think we can say it on call. But if anyone wants to know, you can probably text me. But yeah, so you never know. Like I had another test that day. We had to take a gamble if we wanted to write company two or Baxter. We had to make a choice, and we had to come to college. So Baxter process by itself was one aptitude test that we had to take. So they said it was just an online test. We didn't know if it was coding or aptitude. So as soon as we logged in, there was two parts. One part was quantitative aptitude, and the other one was just like CS technical questions in terms of MCQs. After writing that, around like 90% of the people were kicked out, and the remaining 10% of us were asked to come for the interview on campus. And we had two rounds after that. One was the technical interview. For me, it was a technical interview where my interviewer mostly asked me about uh, linked list questions. And here again, like Smriti mentioned initially, like you really have to direct your interviews, because if you don't take control over what your interviewer is saying, I feel like he or she can ask whatever they want, and it gets really hard for you to answer certain things. So it went on about lead code questions, and then he takes my resume, asks me about what I did during my ISRO internship, what I did for my capstone, and all this. Again, make sure whatever you put on your resume, you're completely thorough with, because your resume is the only thing that your interviewer has about you, the information that he has about you, and this is what he will ask you about. So make sure you know thoroughly what is there, because any tech stack you mention, and even a little bit that the interviewer knows about the tech stack and you don't, it doesn't look good during the interview. And it can really be a do or die situation there if you don't know what you're saying. So technical interview one was more or less about lead code my projects, which was Capstone and the ISRO internship that I'd done. That went pretty smoothly, and luckily for me, the second one was more of a technical plus managerial round where they asked about like situational questions about what you would do in certain so and so situations. You have a bug in your code, your friend has written this bug, how would you like go talk to him? And like it was more or less situational, and they were asking about like, and like some companies you have to know that don't like you leaving early, and I think like cutting early for like masters, or if you have any plans like that, so you'll have to be really careful, ask the other students in the lobby about how the interviewer is treating you after your master's question. And also many of the Baxter people who came for the Baxter interview, they told us that if you say that you have plans of going for masters, then they're not really pushing you to the next round. So you guys have to really like talk to the people around you, know what's happening in that particular company's interview and all that. So coming to my preparation as such, I think uh, 6M being as busy as it was and us doing a lot of things, I don't think much preparation for placements had happened. So, but the basic things again are again lead code for your coding rounds, aptitude from like India Bix website has some really good aptitude tests that you can write, which are timed 30 minutes, 20 questions, and which is almost similar, mimicking the company aptitude tests that come along. So aptitude tests, lead code questions for your coding rounds, some theory rounds for some theory subjects like OSCN, DBMS, OOPS, and some companies do ask about MLC, cloud computing, and all that, but it's mainly OSC and DBMS and OOPS that either companies will ask you in your interviews questions on these, or you'll have technical MCQs where you'll have to answer these questions as a part of your initial coding round test. So those are, I think, what's important. And again, your resume, make sure you keep it at least to only like one page so that it's easier for them to read. And whatever you keep on your resume, make sure you're thorough with it. Projects as such, it's good to have one or two recent projects on there, which helps obviously during the interview rounds, where if you can speak about it for like 5, 10, 15 minutes and like take control of the interview where you are kind of saying what you want to say in the interview, I think that helps. So yeah, I think that's about it. Focused on a few of my projects and did some lead code aptitude, and this was all mostly during our summer vacation after the semester ended. And by the time July ended, I think companies started coming, and the company test itself was acted like practice for us for the further test. So I think that was my experience overall.
So one thing that that interested one of the people from the queries was you interned at ISRO, and it's an off-campus placement, right? Like
Right.
internship.
Yeah.
So how did like you get off campus, and how does off-campus internship like generally work? I'm sure it's probably more tougher than on-campus, I guess.
Right.
Is it
Yeah.
like
So
what is?
on campus is pretty straightforward. You get a mail, you apply on a Google form. You have round one, round two, round three, whatever, as in when you're shortlisted and you go along the rounds. You do well in all these rounds, you get placed. That's pretty much how on campus works. But off campus is a little more complicated, and it's actually much more complicated. And the easiest way to get land an off campus internship or job offer is through connections and networks. So I think most of us here who've gotten off-campus internships are through some kind of networks or connections that we've made along the way, or through our families or friends and so on. So even my ISRO internship was through one of my friend who had his parent work at ISRO, and they helped us get an off-campus offer at the URO Satellite Center. And I mean, other than that, you have like other tests that go on like Unstop and Dare to Compete and all these other websites, even CodeChef, Hacker Earth, I think, yeah, Hacker Earth and Geeks for Geeks and all have some tests where you can get these off-campus roles, but it's like lakhs of students that you're competing with. Again, Internshala and all these websites are there, cold email, cold websites are there, but these are like really hard to get in through. So networks, I'd say, is the easiest way and how I got my off-campus role. But again, you can try through other avenues as well.
I'll
What would
just
you
add
like?
on. I'll just
Yeah,
add
yeah.
on to this for off campus. So in my second year summer internship, that I had got through LinkedIn, where like I had searched for the HR and just messaged them and sent my resume in one message itself. So that's a 1 in 100 thing that works. It doesn't work usually, but you have to send a lot of, like, in a day you have to send like 100 messages to like HR people, and maybe it might just click. So if you do not have a connection, then that's another way to try about off campus.
Yeah, that was the question in the direction of like, can you just approach people who you don't know and like strike up a conversation? And would it like work? It obviously won't work all the time, but it's good to know it's a possibility
Yes.
for like many of the people who might not
Yeah, so
like
if
get
one
the
tip in that, while you're giving a so other person doesn't have time for you, they have a lot of
true.
work. So when you are like messaging, make sure it's crisp. And in the first message itself, you have your resume given, or you're telling the exact role that you want, and you're conveying the exact message that is needed to be conveyed, and not beating around the bush and waiting for them to reply and all of it. So make sure you do that. That's it.
And I think for most of these off-campus opportunities that you're trying, where say like LinkedIn, where a person doesn't know you, I feel like it does help to have like some kind of USP. So say like you go to somebody and be like, "Hey, I've solved 500 plus questions on Lead Code, and I'm interested in this role. Take me in." Or, "Hey, I have X number of publications in the domain of MLAI. I think I'd be a great fit for your job." So I think if you have like a one-liner that's like a great USP about yourself, I think that grabs their attention, and then you can see where it goes from there.
Great. Thank you so much, Rudransh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rohan and Rajans, for your insightful answers. Now, I have a question for Meda. Usually, most of us get intimidated regarding technical interviews. So, how do you tackle them?
To be honest, even felt quite overwhelmed and intimidated by the idea of a technical interview because I got placed in, I think, the first 1 or 2 weeks of August, and it was completely unexpected for me. Like, I was still trying to find my footing. And I remember in the first week I was writing the test that came up. And I think I just want to reiterate what Rudran said. Checking your mails and being on top of things is very important because it hurts more when you miss an opportunity because you forgot about it, forgot to register or something like that. But in the first week, there were quite a few tests. There was something every day. And till then, things hadn't worked quite that well for me. So I was on lead code. I was trying to by that time I realized what my strengths and weaknesses were. Like, for example, dynamic programming was something that I felt I had to work more on. So I was sort of targeting that area. And then the Couchbase mail came and I had registered. And another advice that I had got from my senior, which I felt was quite useful, was while it's important to check your mails often and register for things, please also go through the company profile and the job role. It, like Rohan said, it's important to know what your goals are, what your strengths are, and what you want to work on, and ensure that you've understood what the company does and what the role expects of you. So I'd just gone through that and I'd applied for Couchbase. And then I got to know, we just got a mail that it was a resume based shortlisting. So for me, I did not have a technical coding round for this. So it was a resume based shortlisting, and the interview was very much technology centric for me. I did not have any managerial or soft skill related round at all. So it was very much centered only around tech. While I didn't have a coding round before it, my first interview was centered around coding, where I know all the people who came for the interview that day had some sort of DSA related question that they had to code and solve. And I saw that throughout the interviews, they were not that strict on like the syntax or uh, those kind of nitty gritties, but they were more focused on how we develop our solution, like how we analyze the problem. Like for example, while I was coding, he would come up with some random edge case, or they would probably give like challenges in between, which we had to solve for and account for. And once that was done, the interviews that I had were very much focused around three subjects: OS, computer networks, and DBMS. There were a few things with other subjects as well, and all of our projects, but my capstone project was mainly deep learning centric. So, but if for this role, there wasn't any machine learning or Gen AI involved. So there was a limited scope to what I could talk about with respect to my project. But it was mainly around these three subjects. And I was posed challenges that were related to what the company does in a way, and related to distributed database systems. And first round, I felt personally that my OS was slightly stronger than the other subjects, so it helped that the conversation went in that direction. And they would give problem statements that we had to solve, which were kind of related to system design as well. So that is also something that's good to read about, even though we don't really encounter that as a subject in our academics. But it was more about problem solving. And while you're answering the while you're talking about your solution, there would be some theory questions thrown your way. So there were quite a few rounds that were centered around OS and computer networks, and that was how my interview process was. But yeah, I think to answer your question, technical interviews, the only way you can get less intimidated is to take it step by step, understand which subjects you are better at and where you could work on. What helped me a lot was I did remember a lot of things from these subjects, but again, the in-depth, the tiny details that you could have forgotten. So for quick revision before the interviews, obviously you'll study throughout your preparation, but when you get selected for an interview, you only have like a day or two short. It's a very short notice that you have. So I would start with a few cheat sheets where they would just list out the concepts that are important, like just headings. And I would go through them. So that was like a flow for me, that I would start with the basics, for example, basics of operating systems, and then go through each concept. And as I would see those, I would realize if I don't remember something, or if I could just brush up on something. And then you go in depth into that. So when you have a technical interview, when you go through the job profile, you kind of get an idea about what subjects they may focus on. So when you have only one evening to sort of revise everything, this is a method that worked for me.
So you said the way you got shortlisted was resume based shortlisting, right? How do you like structure a resume where it like works for you? And sometimes they see like many resumes, right? How do you make your resume like stand out? Out?
Um, I think again it depends on the job profile. Where if they feel like your projects and internships are aligned towards that, then it works out. But I think ensure that your resume is not too long. Highlight your internship experiences and your projects. Choose what projects to highlight. And I think there's a lot of resources available online that talk about the language that you should use in a resume. That's also quite important. But highlight your core technical concepts, highlight things that show that you can apply what you have learned. and put up the most interesting projects that you have. And also you can mention like a few extracurriculars. But as Rudran said earlier, I extracurriculars, it depends from role to role what role it plays in your interview process. For some extremely technically oriented roles, I'm not sure to what extent it helps you other than your own soft skills. But that's how you could go about structuring your resume.
Okay. Thank you, Mela, for that. And next, we have Smriti with her interview experience.
Okay, so my interview, like I gave my interview in my fifth semester. So fifth semester was when we got a mail from PESU Placement saying that, the companies that come to take people for the 2-month internships, they'll be like coming in now. So I think Fidelity was the eighth or ninth company to come and get into it, and companies like that before. And honestly, that period was the most stressful period for me. Like fifth semester in itself gave me the most stress because you just come out of your fourth semester and you're close to placements, and you see that the companies that come, when they take people for internships for 2 months, they barely take any. They take like 2 to 3 people. I think Intuit shortlisted one person from our batch and stuff like that. So that period was especially stressful for me because I, we were all new and like unexposed to placements and stuff. But somehow Fidelity just worked out for me. Like I did not do much of lead code. I just checked when I think Rohan mentioned like lead code and stuff. My rank was 50,000 and I saw like one hard question in lead code. So it's not that important, in my opinion. I think what helped me more was the projects and like assignments that we get in college. I think they are very overlooked, because I remember like my other friends and like just people I knew in college, the moment we get an assignment, like the first thing would be to just look up resources online to plagiarize it or use ChatGPT to get answers and stuff. Just intrinsically, it wasn't focused on placements or anything like that, but I would always try and solve these assignments on myself by myself, or get help from my friends and like my peers by discussing and things like that. I don't exactly remember resorting to like looking for online materials and just copy pasting the answer. That was something I didn't do, and I think that is what helped me a lot when it came to the coding round that you have before, for companies, right? So that helped me because in Fidelity, I think the questions were pretty easy only, in the coding round. But what they looked was time. So how far, even if the questions are pretty easy, how do you, how much time do you take to tackle different questions? How much time do you spend on the big coding questions versus the MCQ technical questions and things like that. So that worked out for me, and then went for the interview where they, again, like Mehta said, they asked me questions based on OSCN and DBMS, predominantly DBMS because that's what the role focused on. So in the interview, I introduced like my projects. By the way, on like your resume, 2 points that I wanted to add were you can put projects that you undertake in college. Like every course that you have that one big assignment towards the end, right? Which is like a group or individual project. So my resume has 4 or 5 of those projects that I've put in, which I thought are interesting and can are suited to be on the resume. Two is I would recommend that you use Overleaf or some other sort of latex scripting softwares to structure your resumes, because I'm not sure how far it's true, but I have heard of some companies that have scripts to scan resumes and check for like, have keyword generation and see what sort of qualities are mentioned in your resume and stuff. So it's always best to do that instead of using Canva and other tools like that for your resumes. So my interview, they again asked, like I directed it in the manner where I mentioned the internship that I did my fourth sem, which was with CDSAML, because in fourth sem, I don't think there are a lot of companies that take students because you're pretty much unexposed to important concepts that are taught in your fifth and sixth sem. But I still didn't want to waste my summer, so I interned with CDSAML, and I tried to highlight my ML project, but that was of no use because they were looking for a more DBMS related role. So the day before my interview, a friend recommended Interview Bit for me, and I went on the website, and they had a lot of repositories and resources for conventional topics that are questioned in interviews, and that helped me a lot because that was the only studying I did before my interview, and luckily, like 4 or 5 questions that were asked were came off of Interview Bit, like conceptually. So that helped me. And then it was the HR round, which was pretty straightforward. And there they asked me about my clubs and extracurriculars. And they asked me about, like, in my project, if a particular team member wasn't really working, how exactly would you handle a situation like that and stuff. So in as much as, your technical skills, it's right, I mean, not right, it's essential for you to be polished in those to a certain extent. It's also important how you decide to present yourselves and how you the kind of power you show in your HR interviews, how smart you are in your HR interviews and stuff. Those things really help you to secure a chance to intern there. So that worked out, and I interned at Fidelity for 2 months, and that converted to a PPO luckily. So I did not have to sit for the placement test that came afterwards, August onwards in seventh semester. So I think, yeah, that's how my experience went. Like, the one suggestion I would like to give is that I remember being in my 4th semester and stressing out about what I would do in the next 2 months of summer that came. Don't stress out if you don't have an internship for that. I would suggest that you look towards college resources itself. There's CCBD and CDSAML, where you can spend a nice time in your 2 months and have a project to add to your resume. In your 5th and 6th semester, as much as it's important to practice DSA and all of that, it's also important to not get bogged down by the kind of stress and pressure you feel. It's important to be in clubs and, like, talk to friends and chill out a bit, because that really helps bring down stress levels and the like. And obviously, if you it's also, like, a lot of it is based out of luck, because it might, not every interview can be good for you, or not every coding test can be good for you. Sometimes it's just not your day, but you will know when it's, something is meant for you. Everything, at least for me, just went like a breeze. At least my coding round, interview, everything, and I landed up that thing. So it's not necessary that every opportunity is placed. It's the timing matters a lot. So I think you should just learn to have faith in yourself, faith that you will get placed 100% if you put in the effort. And yeah, just chill out. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Smriti. Now I have a question. We have a mixed bunch of audience watching out there from second sem, fourth sem, and sixth sem. So, what are the tips you would give to each of the students from those semesters?
Okay. So for second sem students, I think at the end of second semester, you would have learned Python and C, because that's what we were taught. And I'm assuming the course structure isn't that different. So you would have basics of Python and C, with you. You should probably invest your time in websites like LeetCode and HackerRank and things like that, and solve their practice questions. I wouldn't say, like, every day aim for 10, 15 questions and things like that, because I did not do any of that. At the end of second sem to third sem jump, I was not worried about placements at all. That's a thought that did not even cross my mind. But if you are, like, stressed about placements at that point in time, definitely practicing on LeetCode and HackerRank will be beneficial, because it exposes you to that environment of competitive coding. Fourth semester, if you're at the end of your 4th semester, one thing I would actually recommend for that bridge is that the different assignments and projects that are given to you in college, please don't overlook them, and please don't look for shortcut methods to give your answers and submissions to these projects, because there's a level of thinking and a method of thinking that goes into submitting the solutions for these assignments. And trust me, the projects that you get in these actual internships and placements that you're looking for, they are largely related to the kind of mental work required for the assignments that you deal with in college, right? So like I mentioned in my placement experience before, that's something that really helped me out. So in that bridge, I would definitely recommend, in third sem you have web tech, so the final project that you have to give, right? I would suggest investing a decent amount of time and effort into finishing that project completely. In the end of fourth semester, it's okay if you don't have an internship with a legit company, because from what I know, most of the people who landed up an internship in that period between fourth and fifth sem was largely through referrals. And unfortunately, I did not have the contacts to, go out and get a internship for those 2 months from a legit company. But I saw that CDSAML was looking to get students to do projects, so I gave my name for that, and that worked out really well, because if it wasn't for that, I'd be largely strange to the concept of graph theory and machine learning algorithms with graphs and stuff. So it was like a gradual thing, no? Like in fourth sem, because I did that internship with CDSML, I could use that project to market myself in the with Fidelity's technical interview, because I could brand that and they'd know that I have a project to call my own. So I would recommend at the end of your fourth semester, don't fret if you don't have an internship with a corporate company. Do look out for resources like CCBD and CDSAML and ISFCR in college, because they will help you a lot. In your fifth semester, when companies usually come to take students for the 2 month internship, I would recommend keep your hopes high, but not too high, because from what I have seen, they don't take in. Each company comes and they take like 2 3 students. Some companies come and take like 20 students. Fidelity took around 17. So it's very, very varied. But give your, like, don't miss any emails and try your best to write each and every coding round test that comes, because you never know when it's going to click for you, especially when you're putting in all the hard work. You don't want to miss out on something because you simply overlooked something like this, like how Medha said. So yeah, at the end of sixth semester, you should, if you don't have that internship again, CCBD, CDSML are very good alternatives, because I do have friends who had the 2 month internship after the sixth semester with CDSML and CCBD, which was pretty helpful, because you do get a stipend for it and you can like furnish it for credits and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I just want to add on to one of the things that Smriti was saying. Again, I'm not sure how true this is, but initially, when a few companies started coming in the beginning, my resume was on Canva, and most of these shortlisting ones didn't actually work out. And like the day I changed it, I made it on an overleaf format on overleaf itself, and immediately I was shortlisted for 2 to 3 companies. So again, I don't know if that's a coincidence or they were actually putting those ATS checkers that they were saying they did, but I don't know. You guys can try it out for yourself.
Yeah. Like I had a Canva resume initially, and luckily for the interview, they asked us to print the resume and come, so I was safe. But I've heard of a lot of stories where people, like when they have the resume based shortlisting and stuff, because it's made on Canva, because it cannot be scanned, people do tend to miss out on opportunity. So it's just best to play it safe and build it on Overleaf.
I mean, again, Overleaf is just a latex format. If you want, you
Yeah.
can build it on like Word or Google Docs or whatever. But like, it just looks good on Overleaf in the latex format.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Thank you both. Being a fourth sem student, your advice was truly valuable. Now I have Taher. Please share your placement experience with us.
All right, I'm audible, I hope. So, yeah, how it started for me was that in after the sixth sem in the summer break, me and like a few of my other friends, we like took it as a challenge upon ourselves to like start like actually preparing for placements. So we just made a group and we started sending each other questions to solve. And also, it's kind of good if you're preparing. Like I'm sure some people said they had little to no lead code experience, but on the other end of the spectrum, there's people who've solved hundreds and hundreds of these kind of questions, and they somehow still, like, it's somehow luck or somehow the questions are tough that you don't get it, but don't let that demoralize you. So how it works is you have to make a sort of plan on what kind of concepts you want to cover and exactly what you want like to cover in one day. So let's say one day you want to learn something about strings, the next day you can do something about searching, the next day you can do something about linked lists. So these are the kind of concepts you want to cover on a day-to-day basis, and this is what I was doing in the months of June and July. So in about 30 to 40 days, I did maybe about 250 odd lead code questions. So yeah, it was a doable task. Some days I was doing maybe 5 to 6 questions. Some days I was doing one or none at all. So yeah, it's good to take breaks also when you're preparing for these kind of things. So yeah, that was the main preparation as such, you can say, for placements. And in otherwise just rehearsing your revising your concepts of OS, CN, DBMS, and these are very commonly asked in placement interviews. So yeah. So how it worked for me was that college sends a Google form for each and every company, and all of these are separate. So you fill in your details. They ask you details about your 10th marks, 12th marks, your current CGPA, and they ask you for a resume. And I'm sure you guys have got tips about how to build a resume by now. So uh, that's good. So how it works is you register for this. College sends all the list of all students who are interested in the company, and as Medha has mentioned, as Medha and Rohan have mentioned, do some background check on the company, the job profile, see if it's something you actually want. Don't register for companies where you're not interested in the job role at all. So like by chance, if you get the job, then you cannot write any more tests, and like you'll be considered placed and you can't write any more tests. So if a company that you actually really want to work in later comes, you won't be eligible to write the test for that. So yeah, do your research about what kind of work the company is offering and what kind of role you will be getting at the company. So yeah, that's a good tip to keep in mind. So yeah, and then after registering for the company, in a few days time, or the in the mail itself that college sends, they'll specify when you'll have a test. And sometimes they even mention if the college company is visiting campus or something like that. And also these companies have a pre-placement talk with you where they like explain things about their company. So if you register for the company, it's usually mandatory to attend the PPT, and it's important to make yourself present for that. And this can either be online or it can be held in college, so you have to sometimes go to college for the PPT talk. Yeah. So my test in my case was an online test, so I wrote the test at home, but the PPT for this test was in college. So yeah, at writing the test at home, it was an evening test, and yeah, sometimes for evening tests you kind of feel tired and you don't give it your best. I would say that uh, irrespective of what time the test is or where the test is being held, you should feel prepared enough to answer anything. And a lot of these tests ask questions mainly on graph and dynamic programming. These are the across like the few like 40 odd tests I've written, these are the most common concepts asked. But some tests also have some usually some easier concepts such as searching, hashing, and those kind of concepts. So this is what you should be prepared for. Yeah, so fortunately, I got shortlisted for an interview. So when I came for the interview, we had 4 rounds on that day, which is usually on the higher side of interview rounds. Yeah, so the first round was a technical round where I was asked questions mainly, firstly, on my resume. So they asked me some concepts on my resume, and they were interested in some of the courses I had done in college. So yeah, some topics related to cloud computing and big data came up in my interview, which were interesting because that is usually not asked in interview. But since these were of interest to me, these are subjects of interest to me, I was able to answer these topics pretty easily. And yeah, and it also helps that sometimes electives you take in the sixth sem, fifth and sixth sem, some of these electives can give you a boost for certain companies. So if you take data analytics, big data, some companies prefer that you've done these kind of courses, and some companies which are like telecom based companies, they prefer if you have done more in computer networks or cyber security, these kind of electives. Yeah, so the first round of my technical interview, uh, I was asked a lot of questions based off my resume, and they also asked like a couple of coding questions where you had to write pseudo code in front of them. We also had some database queries, and yeah, they were pretty easy. Like they don't ask you very, very tough questions in technical interviews for coding, and that's just been my experience. So I cleared the first round, and in the second round we had a more software engineering or object oriented sort of technical round where they ask where they give you a situation where they want you to design some sort of software, provide class diagrams, provide how you will design an entity relationship diagram. So this was the second round. It was a situational based round, and it also helps that you've done projects in these subjects where the coursework actually makes you draw out these diagrams and prepare. So this is what is usually done in the fifth and sixth sem. And the third round was a managerial round where we the manager, or like in my case it was the vice president of the company, I think. And he asked me a lot of questions about like my personality, and a few coding questions were there in that as well. uh, and it was much more of aptitude test sort of thing. So he put me in some situation where you were in a garden and you had to steal mangoes or something like that. It was a tricky question, but it was fun. Yeah, it was fun solving it in front of them. And the last round was a HR round where again they assess your personality, and it sometimes happens that you get eliminated. You make it through all the rounds, but in the final HR round, if they feel something is off about like your personality, or they find out, like it was mentioned before, that you might be planning to study further, do masters, they might not take you further. Yeah. And another tip that I would give is that you should probably dress very formally, present yourselves well, because it's the first impression that you will make to these interviewers, and they usually prefer when people are dressed professionally. And even, yeah, so if the interview is more dressed than you, it does not look good. That's just what I feel, in my opinion. Yeah, that's mainly about my placement story. That's how it went. And yeah, I cleared all 4 rounds and I got the offer.
Thank you, Tahir. Now I have a question for you. Usually, the most difficult challenge which engineering students face is balancing between their GPA and skills. So, what, according to you, should we prioritize more? Maintaining a CGPA or placement preparation?
Especially for six semester students, because this is like the last semester before their placements, and only the GPA they score in this semester is gonna help them more than seventh and eighth, because that time they won't, it's not gonna be counted, right? So in this semester, like, how do you like what you should focus on more, depending on.
So my simple answer to that would be the fact that your GPA is not something that is built off just one sem. You have to like consistently work from the beginning of college to now. Like you can mess up maybe 1 or 2 sems, but after like maybe sem 3 you have a solid idea of what GPA range you belong to. And yeah, and you either have to like prepare mentally that I want to improve my GPA cannot be like this, or like you're one of these guys who's happy with like an 8.5. So from a placement perspective, I would highly recommend to have a GPA of at least 8.5, because most companies do a short list, that when you register for the company, uh, they mostly let people who only have a GPA of above 8.5 write the test. That's what I've noticed, 8 or 8.5. Some, it depends from company to company. Some companies have it lower, maybe at 7. And the first step to write getting any sort of placement is to be eligible to write the test, and your GPA plays the most important uh, role in that. So maintaining a good GPA is pretty important, I'd say. So I know people who have got really good jobs who with a low GPA, like don't think GPA is not that important. Like you can get away with a low GPA as well. But what I'd say is that having a good GPA definitely puts you in the crowd of people who have a higher chance of getting a good company. So yeah, that's what my take on the whole GPA thing is. And as for skills, I would say your placement preparation should mostly be happening after the sixth sem anyway. So in the summer break is when most people like really put their head down and start working towards it. So your GPA is really out of the question at that time, unless you're doing the placement preparation after fourth sem as well, where you're preparing for internship tests, which will come in the fifth sem.
Okay, thank you so much. It was a very enlightening experience to hear all of your placement experiences, and now I'm sure most of the people who are watching would have a general idea of how a placement goes about. So now we have like a few queries which we have collected from people who were from various semesters. So I have the first question. Now that we were on topic of GPA, one thing, this question is directed to Rohan. So, how much weight does CGP actually hold, and like what's like the hard cutoff for people who will have suppose below 8, and what's like a cutoff for people who will have after 8? Like after 8, suppose there was like a query which asked like if a GPA is 8.3 or something, should you like focus to make it more, or should you like just focus more on the placement aspect or the summer internship? And for people who are below 8 as such, what should they do to should they like focus more to it? Obviously, you'll have to make it more, but what do you do? Like, should you focus more on placements or?
Okay, so first, directly to the 8.3 people, try to make it above 8.5. That's essentially a pretty safe place to be. So CGPA plays a lot of importance in the starting of the placements for sure. Okay, so let's say there's me and Rudransh has 9 and I have 8.5. We're exactly like giving good interviews. We have a decent enough resume, and they're looking at both of us, and only one of us can go. They'll obviously just go back to the CGPA and be like, okay, he has 9, so let's just take him. So at some point, where everyone tells it's an entry criteria, it also becomes an exit criteria between like if you're like two candidates who are similar. So that is one thing about GPA. And so in the starting, some companies have a hard deadline, like hard eligibility criteria about like, let's say I want 8 plus only or 8.5 plus only. And if you're below that, it's fine. Just ignore that company and move ahead. There's nothing to feel bad about it, because what's happened in the 6 semesters has happened. You only have a chance to like make it better in the opportunities that you get. But overall, I would say that GPA does play a role in the starting and in the end, like if they have to choose between two candidates. Other than that, in your interviews, it doesn't play a lot of role. But let's say there are a lot of students, let's say in PES also, in the starting we get around 500, 600 people writing the test at once, more than that for sure. And they want to interview only 50 people, and let's say 200 people have done equally well and above the cutoff, then they will go back to the GPA and take the first 50 people uh, based on the GPA who have crossed their cutoff level. So there also at some point your CGPA might come into picture. The only place it doesn't come into picture is the interviews, because they know you've cracked the online test, online coding, so that's fine. But other than that, at all three positions, entry eligibility, your GPA does play a role. And if there are a lot of students in the starting of the placement, everyone does apply for everything mostly because they're starting and they want to take a feel of the practice all the tests. So that time there are a lot of people and they can't take 200 interviews in a day. So that time also the GPA does play a little bit of role. Saying that, if you have a less GPA and it's not fixable in only the 6th semester, even if you get a 10, just try to focus more on, let's say, coding, and make sure that your code is optimized. Online tests are really good. That preparation is really good because the GPA is been damaged already, so you can't do anything about it right now. So it's better to focus on the other stuff and make up for the GPA. That's my take on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So the next question I have is for Medha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was one person asking, like, what is the correct number of projects, or what's the optimal number, and what should be the quality of the projects that you put in your resume?
I don't think there's a number of projects as such. I would say try to quality of projects is more important than number of projects. It's okay to not have a lot of projects on your resume as long as you have a few that are of good quality and that show how what your strength in that subject. And I think what's very important here is what Smriti said. During our course, especially for us over the last few months, last few semesters, every subject they gave us one very good project towards the end, which was actually a very interesting problem statement. So if you felt like in any one of those subjects that you're particularly interested in, you might have gone a little above just the problem statement in those projects. So those are things that you could list on your resume, and again go through the job role and understand what profile they're hiring for. And you could potentially have things in the same domain, or even in the interview if they're asking you about any subject and they give you a problem statement, you could always draw back to a project that you've worked on that is maybe similar to that domain. So then you're driving the conversation, and that will always help you. But again, not there's no strict limit on the number of projects, but show some quality projects, show projects that have publications associated with them. Look for projects that show your interests in different domains and also that show how well you've learned those concepts.
Thank you for the insights, Mira. Now I have a query to Rudransh. So, what is the most ideal time to start preparing for placements?
Yeah, so again, the earlier the better. So for someone who started in say first year and he's been grinding lead code projects, internships, and all these other things, definitely he's going to fare better than the rest of us who've done 1, 2, 3 weeks before. But then again, I don't think that's realistic for most of us coming into college. I don't think the first thing you do is open up lead code. So I think for most of us, what like 6 months before from your when your sixth semester starts, I think you should be able to cover most of the topics with regarding, like, again, for people who've heard of like neat code where there's 150 questions, that, or if you just go to lead code and go to the top 150 interview questions, each of these, if you do even one per day, that'll take you like what, 5 months. But again, so if 6 months, and I feel like even the important concepts of OSD, BMS, OOPS, all these things within, like, even if you spend like an hour a day on these things, I think within like 6 months, you should be able to be in like the top 1% of the people who've studied those topics and fare well during placements. But being realistic, I feel like, I mean, at least talking about my experience, I pretty much started doing most of these things in the months of June and July itself, right after semester ended and before seventh semester began. So I think 2 months is what I did, and it sort of worked. I don't think I was in the most ideal place when these tests were going on, but it did work, and I'm pretty sure it worked for most others as well, with just around 3, 4, 5, 6 to 8 weeks of preparation. So I think ideal would be as early as possible, but I think 6 months should be able to cover most. And I think 1, 2 months also, I don't think any need to panic. I think you do well, and again, it's there's a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of uh, like superior forces involved. So I think we just have to pray and do our best, and I think you'll most of you will make it somewhere or the other. So yeah.
And there was one question directed to you.
Yeah.
They asked, what exactly did you mean by directing the interviewers' questions in your favor?
Okay. So if it's more like, suppose the interviewer say he takes your resume and he starts. So I'll talk about my example, for instance, with Baxter itself in round number 1, which was the technical one. So I'd gone in, I'd given my resume, and he saw my ISRO and my Capstone project and all that, and he started asking me questions. So now most of these questions I can uh, complete with like 2 3 sentences, just giving him answers as to what he's asked. So if he's like, what is your tech stack, what tech stack did you use for so and so project, I can just be like, yeah, hey, this is Python with a few libraries so and then wait for him to ask the second question. This I feel like would be a way where he gets to ask more and more questions. But instead, I feel like what you should be doing when he asks even a small question about your, say, your internship or your project is, even if he asks you about your tech stack, I think you just go on about what the project does, what the ins and outs are. I mean, like, you should not uh, just waffle your way around for most of these things. Also, I feel like you should be able to be concise, but also tell them what you think you're good at. And I feel like even if they haven't asked you, I feel like you should be able to show to them that you are qualified, you are good in certain skills that would be necessary for the job at their company. And again, I think you'll understand that with by reading the company profile, by reading the job description, you'll know what's important. And even if certain questions aren't asked, but they are related to what you've done, I think directing the interview in the way you want them to know you, I think that's important for you to be pushed on to the next round.
Thank you, Rudranj. So the next question, I think I'll ask Smriti, and anyone can like answer if you like have any points to add. Uh, how worried should like we as students be about like the current market scenario and with all the news of layoffs and such, and how does it impact our job landscape?
Okay. I think recently there was news about Google confirming that they did lay off like what 100 200 employees, and then Discord and like other companies also have made news about layoffs. So the question was, how worried should you be? You shouldn't be worried. You should be well informed, because like there's channels on the internet that's like tech layoffs 2024 live updates. Every minute they throw updates about companies that are laying off people and things like that. There's also like a recent article that I read somewhere which explains about layoffs and how worried people should be and stuff, and the reason for the same. And they used a phrase called copycat behavior. And the moment I read that, like my mind, which I have again mentioned like 3 4 times in the same meeting, but my mind went back to the 6 7 semesters that we had, and how the moment like one of the professors would give us some assignment, I would not, we would like, we typically people would not even pay attention to the assignment, and then a few days before it, we'd go and look up solutions on ChatGPT, and then put that and then submit the document, or just ask people for answers and give that, like submit the same document. And I witnessed that firsthand also, because we had like I was at A for graph theory, and the number of plagiarized assignments, the number of people who have sent in the same piece of code was like, it was uncountable. It was a lot. So I think how they rightfully mentioned copycat behavior, that is probably one of the reasons why you should actually be worried about the market. But again, don't be too worried, be well informed, because I think even though such things happen, your placement process doesn't really stop. There is an impact, obviously, but your placement process doesn't really stop. And the moment you decide to get better of it, get ahead of it, do the best that you can, right? Like practice on the websites that they have mentioned, and be more sincere to the projects and assignments that are there. You can immediately get on top of it, because there are just some things that are not in our control, right? Even that is also related to your GPA and the different requirements that companies have, because some companies just come and shortlist you based off of your resume. Some companies exclusively hire for girls, like Adobe She Codes and stuff. From what I know, like this year Fidelity took only girls, but back in my batch, it was a pretty normal process. So there are continuous changes that keep happening, and some of the stuff is just not in our control, but there's stuff in your control, like the minimum GPA that you require to sit for tier one placements. This time we had Apple come, and they took in people who had, I think, a GPA above 9.4. And even though like some of us were really, really passionate and sent in our, filled the Google form and stuff, we just couldn't go because my GPA was not a 9.4, so I could not even sit for Apple. So it's really disheartening when, there's stuff in your control, but not so much that you don't pass the basic eligibility criteria to actually sit and and showcase yourself and achieve what you want. So I would say, more than being worried about the market, the AI wave, and like things like that, which are, they have very limited control, or you have very limited control over it. I would say be informed and worry about things that are in your control, like the projects you undertake and your GPA and things like that.
I'll just add to it. So, as someone mentioned, the AI wave, we were all in the thick of it and we were all a part of it. But it's nothing to really worry about. All of us, mostly all of us, do get placed. If someone's not looking for it, that's a different story. But yeah, the college does, as compared to other college, PES does a really good work of like cold calling companies, calling other companies, telling them to take more people, pitching ourselves, selling the college. So that's nothing to majorly worry about. It's not in your control. You can just like do the tests well and go ahead. That's mainly what happens, and college does help us a lot.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. It was like a little comforting to know that our college does help us and we won't have to worry as much about about it. The next question I have is for Tahir, which is a little more technical. What's like the most popular programming language right now? Like what do most companies look for?
So, uh, programming language, I would say, is completely based on what your needs are, right? So, if honestly, from a personal perspective, uh, I prefer C++ because I like the syntax and I like the libraries. But most people and most college coursework in general requires you to use Python. So for cracking placement coding rounds, I would say just use the language you like the most, the language you're most comfortable in. And this, you either might have to learn how to use that language, or you might already be very familiar with it. And why I like C++ is because it has the standard template library, which helps you a lot when you want to like do these technical round questions. So you have things like vectors, maps, and you have stacks and a lot of such things that help you when you want to like write coding tests. But when you go to work at a company, that is completely out of your hands. The company will decide what language they have been using, because they have they obviously have a history of what they've been working with. And some companies don't even use a common like coding language. Let's say a senior of mine who worked at Morgan Stanley told me that they have their own proprietary coding language, and like it's nothing like you've seen, and you can't even share the code with anyone. You cannot check for how the code syntax works online, because the company has developed it on their own and it's only meant for company use. So the only time you're learning it is either when you're working on it hands on, or when you're taking help from like mentors or uh, like your co-workers in that company. So I wouldn't be too worried about the specific coding language you're choosing to use. The most common ones, I believe, are Java, C++, and Python. So stick to one of these three, and you should be good for the placement process. We do have a few companies in college that only allow you to write in a particular language. So I think some company only allowed you to write in either C or C++. So we had some tests like that, but those are very rare. But I'd say be familiar with like a primitive coding language, something that explains how the basic data structures work, instead of like, that's what I feel, because Python is very easy to use and very friendly for like beginners. So learn something that shows you're ready to do something more complicated, something that has syntax. So that would be my answer. If anyone else has anything to add.
I have like one more question. It's not really related to this, but what like exactly is like the difference except the time between a summer and a spring internship?
The difference between summer and spring internship. So, according to our college, a summer internship is a 2 month internship, and a spring internship is a 6 month internship. And the summer internship is usually in your summer break when your even semester ends. You have a long break of about 2.5 months. So that's a summer internship where you can actually apply to work at a company, and you spend those 2 months working at a company. But a spring internship can only be done in your eighth semester according to college rules, where you get a total of 6 credits for working at a company, and you do not have any college courses to take. So instead of taking college courses, you're working at the company, and this company gives you a evaluation of your work, and that is what you will be using to get your grade in your eighth semester. So that's the main difference between a spring and a summer internship. Summer internships have credits as well, but those are only for 2 credits, and uh, these credits do not keep adding up. They don't keep stacking up. You can only claim 6 credits at the end of your BTech degree. So yeah, if you collect summer internship credits earlier, so your spring internship will only be 6 minus how many ever credits you've earned before. So take it like that.
Great, thank you.
So, my next query is directed to Medha. What are the most relevant market skills as of today?
I think problem solving is the most important skill. There were quite a few questions about, what language or what sort of projects to have. But at the end of the day, if the company that you go for you might not know everything in the tech stack that they are using. But what you need to have is a curiosity to learn, and a problem solving ability. They look for how you approach a solution rather than how well you know a certain subject. So I think in any interview, that is the approach that most interviews go by. And yeah, I think also, you could focus on your core subjects and your basic soft skills as well. But I think if you have covered those essentials, that is essentially in a nutshell what companies are looking for in students.
Thank you for that answer, Medha. Now I have a query to Rudransh. Uh, what is the importance of a summer internship? Like most people don't land up in one, so how to cope with that as well?
Yeah. So talking about internships that you do in your summer, that is before you get placed, it's more or less for like your own skill building that you would want to do for any tech stack that is concerned. So I think if you don't have a summer internship, there's nothing really to worry about. You can use that time to actually study for placements. But if you do have one and you think it's going to look good on your resume and it can actually be a talking point for you during your placements, or if there's a chance of it converting into a PPO, I think those are the main advantages of a summer internship. But otherwise, if you don't have one and you just want to focus on placements, you can I think you can just substitute these 2 credits elsewhere, either in your eighth semester or with some special topic courses. So there's nothing much to worry about. You're not losing much if you don't have a summer internship. But if you do have one, just focus on the PPO or about the project that you're actually doing in that company in summer so that you can talk more about it during your placements.
Okay, thank you so much, Rudransh. The next question I have is for Rohan. So this is like a common question. Many people were asking on how to improve their soft skills and present yourself better in an interview.
Okay. So I'll tell you. So I mainly bettered my soft skills or communication in college itself. I sucked at it in my school. So there's nothing to worry about if you cannot talk well right now. If you're in your first year or second year, something like that, join as many clubs as you can. Just not for not taking out some result out of it, but you'll just meet a lot of people. You'll have to network, you can communicate with them, you'll have to work in teams. Basically these clubs help you to work in teams, or fests help you to work in teams, and you have to coordinate, and that time it helps you to open up. And also just keep an open mind and talk to your friends. Just practice. Maybe if you want, just take just two of your friends, practice it, and practice an interview. Your friend is going to obviously mock at you, and that's the best way to like learn, because once you're put down and then you can get up easily, that's not an issue. But yeah, just go to as many clubs as you can, and just try to communicate and talk to other people, network there. That's the main thing. So if it's just in college, that will help you a lot. These clubs will help in soft skills a lot.
Okay, thank you. So there was one question which is from the comments of our YouTube live. They're asking whether you should give more weight to the role or the company brand itself. What should you like focus more on?
I mean, it depends on how long you see yourself working at that company. So I'd say if you want to like work somewhere else in the future, or you want to like pursue masters, I'd say a company's brand value holds pretty heavy. But if you plan to work for a long time at one place, you want a good role. So you want some place that you actually enjoy the work. And apart from that, another thing you can add to the mix is pay, because a lot of people won't be happy with pay initially. So what I'd say is, for the first 5 years of working, like, completely disregard pay. See like what you're learning from the job, see the kind of skills you're getting. Because until you're in your 30s, you're just experimenting with things, you're seeing what works with you. You don't have like a family to feed and stuff. So I'd say keep the pay on a little behind, and for either work for a role that you like, or work for a company that has a brand value for future prospects of yours.
Okay. Thank you, Tahir. So the next question I have is for Smriti. So how to get better at problem solving and like crack DSA questions in like general? What approach should you take for someone who's like fairly knowledgeable in DSA?
Okay, so if like you're in your fifth or sixth semester, that means you've already chosen your electives. If you're heading closer to placement, two things. One would be spend more time on lead code because they have a good amount of DSA focused questions. Two would be to revise back to the third semester curriculum where we had DSA as a 4 credit or 5 credit course, because that was very helpful for me, because after second semester, DSA was one of the major courses in your third sem. And I would definitely say pay a lot of attention to that particular subject, because that's something you'll have to carry forward. So if you're someone who's heading closer to placements towards your seventh semester, focus more on websites like LeetCode to practice their DSA questions and revert to the material that you have in your third sem. If you're heading towards your fifth or sixth semester, the previous two things that I mentioned apply, but also an extra thing would be the electives that you choose to opt for in your fifth and sixth semester, because like in particular found DSA very interesting in my third sem. So when we had the option of choosing electives in fifth and sixth semester, I wanted to choose stuff that were kind of more related to DSA or involved DSA in some manner. So I had taken I don't remember what exactly it was called, but it was called algorithms something algorithms, and graph theory. So those were my two electives in fifth sem. So those subjects required me to code a lot in C++ and Python, and solve DSA related questions. And in my sixth semester, I took GP and DBT. So that's generic programming and database technologies. So GP in particular helped me a lot because that was a lot of C++ template programming and DSA. So if you are at that point where you have to choose your electives and you want to focus on DSA, I'm not sure if the elective options have changed, but pick ones that have require you to work more on hand with coding and solving DSA questions. Obviously, you can talk to seniors and reach out to them to get their opinion on electives and stuff. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Smriti. So there was one question which was directed to Medha. The person wanted to know how, like, though we've already asked the question about resume, you got placed at Couchbase and you said Couchbase is totally resume shortlisting. The person wanted to know how would you go about, talk more about your resume and see how you like got placed in a company which shortlists completely based on resumes.
Right. So I can answer this only based on how I've spoken to some other people who got shortlisted as well. And I think quite a few of us had projects or internship experiences that were aligned with maybe the job role or what the company was doing. And I've spoken to some other people who also had this resume based shortlisting, which happens, which is more important in offline recruitment as well, because there, you're just filling a form or you're just sending your resume to recruiters. So there, I think you have to make, like, if you're just DMing someone on LinkedIn, right? You want to make this stuff on your resume stand out that's very much aligned with what that company is doing. Like if you're going to an ML based startup or that you're applying there, you want to highlight your machine learning projects. So I think structure your resume very well. Don't make it too long because the attention span is quite short. If you're going for a, if you know that something is resume based shortlisting, custom tailor your resume maybe for that role if you know for sure. Highlight specific projects, highlight your experience in particular domains. That is something that helps. And if it's a general resume building thing, then I think again, have proper sections on your resume. Start off with your internship experiences, talk about what you have done, mention what exactly you worked on, what tools and skills tools you've used, skills you've built. It's always good to mention these things in your projects. List down important projects. I would always say quality of projects is more important. List down projects that you've spent a long time on or that have impact. Highlight that impact that your project or your work has had. Talk about the publications that you have out there. And then you can go on to your extracurriculars and your achievements in school or college that you think are relevant to the role that you're applying for. And people also add stuff like what languages they're familiar in resumes, so even that is something that could help you. And languages that you are familiar, coding languages that you're familiar with, tools and frameworks that you've used. So it should just, in short, highlight the work that you have done and your strengths as a developer.
Thank you so much, Medha. There's one more question, though it's not related, but still very relevant and important, I think. How to deal with the pressure of comparing yourself to your peers and placement pressure in general?
I think that is probably one of the biggest things that you have to work on through placement season. Like, yeah, you have to lead code, you have to keep reading, but it is quite luck based, right? I think someone mentioned that sometimes you just don't know the answer to a question and there's no way you can go about it. But you see that it's a very long process. Some people, you see people getting placed every day, and sometimes you may not have made the cutoff for that test, or you might have missed out on by a very fine margin. So I feel like for me at least that was something that was very difficult, because you would see people getting their summer internships, you see people getting their PPOs, and when you're still unplaced at that time, it's not easy, because you have that internal battle that you have to fight. But I think at that time you just have to focus and get your stuff together, because at that time all you can do is focus on yourself. And you will know that, I feel like for every most people here, you will also have your day where things work out in your favor. And I think just keep studying, follow your plan, follow your method, follow your process, and things will work out. Don't lose heart, because there are many companies that come for college recruitments. Like PS Placements does a great job with helping us with that. I think there was a point where there were multiple recruitments happening in one day. So there's no dearth of opportunities. It's great to see our friends getting placed, but don't lose hope. Your time will come too.
Thank you, Meda. We really appreciate your thoughtful insights on this.
So there is one question which is from the chat chat section of our live stream. It asks, what kind of work did you do in your internship? And we know it's not been long since you guys joined your companies. So what kind of work do you do in the working environment, in the corporate environment, which is different from, obviously very different from what we do in college, the projects. So anyone can answer.
Yeah, I think only me and Medha have joined our internship as of now. It's only been a week. So the first couple of days was just induction, just telling them about they were just telling us about the policies they have, and little bit about their whole culture, their setup, how their whole hierarchy works. And the second day was about training, the tools they use. And after that, you go into your teams. The teams have a particular tool they use. Some teams don't use a particular tool. Some teams do use that. So you have to learn about that. So first, I think 2 to 3 weeks is just about training, because you do not know about the technology they're using. So it's mainly about training in the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it's been quite similar. You'll have your initial inductions that happen, and after that, I've had my technical training start, which has been quite interesting, because you go back to your fundamentals. So whatever you're preparing for your interviews or throughout your college, you see it all. You'll have to apply all of these in your work as well. So this is not something that's just for an interview. This is something that will definitely help you in the long term as well. Your preparation.
Thank you so much, guys. There was one more question. Any of you can take this up. How do we leverage? Right now, we know there's a lot of AI tools which are available to our expense. So how do we leverage it to work in our benefit and not hinder our own growth? Because we have, you can just look up the answers to so many things, and we'll always have help to get code from somewhere. How do you make it help you and not stop you from learning?
Okay. I just have a little thought on this, not too much. So these AI tools can help you increase your efficiency, but your creativity, how you learn things, cannot be done by the AI tools. Like you can put code to it and ask. Like I saw someone tell in the chat section a bit for debugging. So yeah, debugging and all of that, you already have your code in place. You don't know what's not working. All that you can use your AI tools, but going and putting, hey, this is my project problem statement for this subject, can you please give me the answer? That's not really helping your case. So avoid doing that. But yeah, you can use it to increase your efficiency, and not the whole project itself, at one stretch. Yeah, anyone else can also add into it.
No, I think it's just like do whatever you want. Like it's a free tool. Like you can make use of it. You can make entire projects with it. Do your debugging. Do ask it for project ideas. Do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, when an interviewer is asking you what this particular line of code does, I feel like you should be able to tell. And that's not going to be very easy when you've copy pasted an entire code base from, be it GitHub or some AI engine. So you can do whatever you want as long as you know what you're typing, you know what you're taking ownership for. If you can explain it to, like, say if you can explain it to a friend what's happening, then you can explain it to the interviewer, and then you're fine. Doesn't have to, then it can be your own project and not something generated by an AI, even though it actually is.
I think something I want to add on to that is that I think the more you use it, right, for I don't know, whatever reasons, it slows down your thinking to an extent. Because I know that I use ChatGPT most frequently if I want to like write emails or like frame some sort of paragraphs or whatever like that. So it's really easy. I can just tell it what I want to do, and then it's going to give me a paragraph of a lot of text, and I can just pick and choose what I want. So that really doesn't require me to think for anything. I just have to go and look for what I want to do. So in my opinion, while I'm all for the AI, explainable AI in 2024, I think it does slow down your thinking. And with respect to placements, that's really not the position that you want to be in. So like Rohan and Rudransh mentioned, leverage it, but leverage it for the right reasons, for reasons where you're stuck somewhere and you're looking for a bit of help. That's the best position, that's the sweet spot to be in. So yeah.
Great. So there was just one more question. Any of you can take this up. What do you suggest for someone who's like in their first year? What sort of approach should they be taking towards college? So, because they don't have to worry about placements, but as all of you are experienced, we've all been through all years of college. So, what would you tell them? What would be your go to advice for them?
I think I think for me, at least from what I've seen from all the people around, as a first year, I think it'll be crucial for most of these guys, apart from academics, to get into clubs and communities and basically things where you interact with people that you don't know before. Because coming into college, most of the people hang around with people they already know from 11th and 12th or from school. I think, and it's hard to mingle in new friend groups. So I think the best way to do that is to join clubs, communities, and most of my closest friends that I've made in college are through clubs, communities who I didn't know before. So, and then these guys can again come third year, they might help you land a off-campus internship or a job somewhere, or anything for that matter. Start a startup together or play some sports together. It'll help you later on, and you'll be thankful that you actually did it. Because I think after college, I don't see many avenues where you'll have a group of 15, 20,000 people in a small 50-acre land where you can actually go around talking and getting to know more and more people. So yeah, I think that would be my advice for somebody just getting into college.
Yeah, adding on to what Rudranj has said, I would say just get a taste of college life. It's your first semester. Like, why are you worrying about placements now? And it'll happen eventually. Like, you'll slowly grow into the like situation of writing these tests, and it'll come to you slowly. But for now, just focus on your classes, focus on talking, meeting people, and like as Rudran said, join some clubs, meet some people, and make sure these clubs are something that you're actually interested in, so you can carry on what you're starting now, and you never know, you might be like the head of the club in some time. So yeah, it can escalate really quickly. I'm pretty sure like even Vibha here, who's like the club head, would not have expected this when she was in first sem. So yeah, just enjoy the life that PES has to offer. Be Yeah.
Yeah, I think just I in your first sem just have fun. Like I feel like that's the memories that you make are super important. And we're all in eighth semester now, and I think we do miss that part of college. So make the most of any opportunities you have in your first sem. You're given that leeway to sort of explore things around, and things start getting hectic only in your second and third year. So while you're in the first year, try to understand what you like and what your interests are. So that's the time that you have to find yourself after the whole 12th grade stress. So join as many clubs as you want, try out as many things as you like, and just explore things and meet new people, try to make more friends. And that's something that will always be good for you.
I think if you were to focus on like whatever subjects related to placements, Python and C, they're the two CS related courses that you have in your first sem. Because I remember we had like engineering, physics, and other courses of that kind. Python and C, those two courses will form your base for what languages you choose to code in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth semesters. That's one thing. Clubs super important. Extremely important. Like I think core memory for me in college would be the ones that I made in clubs, and I definitely miss it being in my eighth semester and like no more clubs and stuff. That's that. I think another thing I want to put out there is I think CIE is a really, really great place to start. I'm not sure if you can join right in your first and second semesters, but I made the mistake of joining in too late to do my CIE L1. And I really wanted to do my L2 and I couldn't do it because I'm in my 8th sem. So I think that's a course that is lovely. You can make a lot of memories and it's really, really, personality building and all of that. So, yeah.
I think for a previous question about soft skills and communication, I think as Smriti mentioned, CIE is a place that you can go. They have a lot of other courses also. They're starting to like they're planning to start about soft skills, and they're not related to like GPA or coding or anything like that. So if you cannot like communicate very well or network very well, I think you can start there because there's no one to judge over there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. There is one more question from the comment chat section of the Meet. It asks whether you've, from your personal experience, that is, if you've seen any of your friends with a lower CGPA who are able to do well in their placements. And like obviously CGPA is important to get the opportunity by itself, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who might not have the CGPA that might make the cutoff. It may make the cutoff, but they don't get the interview. But some people don't make the cutoff. So, what would you say? Like, what would you tell them?
I think all of us have seen people, have seen our friends make it to a very good company with low CGPA. Many companies have cutoffs as low as 7 CGPA or even 7 as far as I can remember. So they've not stressed too much upon CGPA, and the people who are skilled with a lesser CGPA as such have made it into good companies. So we've seen that happens quite often. It's not a once in a blue moon case.
Yeah. To
There's
add to
also
that, I would
companies
say
like,
that. Oh,
sorry.
all right, maybe you can go ahead.
Okay. So there's companies like HP, Deloitte, and KPMG and things like that that take in students with if you have a slightly lower GPA. Even though it's like T2 or T3, the growth there is pretty incredible from what I've heard, and it's also largely based on how well you perform in your companies. So there is no dearth to opportunities available. You will get to sit for companies. Yeah, so I don't think that should be something you should worry about. Right.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that CGPA is not like a guarantee, you can say it, that you will get a placement. There's a lot of people with 9+ CGPA who do not get offers simply because they're not like mentally prepared to do interviews. They're just not able to like crack these coding rounds and things like that. So obviously CGPA matters. Like I wouldn't say it doesn't matter, but it doesn't mean that having a high CGPA guarantees a placement. Having a low CGPA doesn't guarantee a placement. Actually, just find the right balance. So, as it was mentioned in this placement tales conversation so far, 8 to 8.5 is like the sweet spot. 8.5 means you're really safe and you'll be eligible to write all the tests. And what happens after that is where you choose to take it forward and how well you are prepared with your own skills.
Thank you so much. And there was one more thing that we haven't talked about much. So it's about the Capstone project. everyone who's in 6th sem, they have to start off with their capstone project and they have to essentially end up publishing a paper about their project. So, like, does it affect the placement directly, and does the professor under whom you're doing matter that much, and all the other intricacies of capstone?
I think the project definitely helps because I think it's established that your projects are something that's a conversation point in an interview. And your capstone project is something that you will be spending a whole year on. So this might just be one of the longest projects that you've worked on in college. So in that sense, it is definitely very important. And when you spend so much time on a project, it's obviously going to be something that's impactful. It's obviously going to be something where you've learned a lot, and that can really drive conversations in an interview. Additionally, the fact that you're having publications through it, that's a great plus point. It's definitely something that you should talk about in your interview as well. I've seen people in their introductions itself, they talk about the publications they have, and a lot of it is from this capstone project. So it's very important. And I've also seen that a lot of people, the domain that they choose in their capstone project, that is again a major plus point because that shows some knowledge that you have in those subjects. So in that way, I feel like it lays a very good foundation.
So talking about capstone, I think if you have a good capstone, it serves as a really good talking point during your interview process. But on the flip side, if you don't have a good capstone or if you're not progressed enough in your project, it's completely fine. If you have other projects or internships that you can talk about during your interviews for all these companies, that will also work. So, but like as Mehta said, publications and a really progressed capstone project goes a long way during these interview processes.
Also, these companies are looking for someone who can work in a team in a collaborative manner. So that is happening quite a lot in the capstone projects where we're working like four in a team for a year. It can get a little you can have disagreements and all of it, so the collaboration is something that you can also talk about while you're talking about your capstone project as a whole.
Okay. So I guess we've like almost reached the end of our discussion. Do any of you guys have something to add on to everything else we've talked about today?
Okay, just related to the placements itself, first thing, your friends will get placed, your peers will get placed. Don't take that to heart. All of us have done it. It's bound to happen. But just know that you will also get placed at some point. Just have confidence in yourself. Secondly, just know what you want, like prepare for it and know what you want exactly. Um, and make sure that for sure you don't miss any mails, because that's a key thing. You don't want to miss the opportunity. You didn't get it, you didn't do well. That's a different story, but you don't want to miss it as a whole itself. So these three things, and just take it lightly, chill around it, and for sure you will get placed.
Yeah, I think similarly, the whole placement process, I think that I don't think there's one person here who can say that it's been easy for them or it was just a walk in the park or anything. Like at the end of the day, placements are something where you don't know when, where, how you will get placed, and you see people around you getting like everything that you've done till now with your friends, say it like some entrance exams, all of you get results on the same day, all of you rejoice or be sad on the same day, and it just gets over, all of you forget it and move on. But placements are a completely different thing because your friend could have gotten placed 6 months back, 4 months back, 3 months back, and you're still struggling, and some of your other friends have not got placed. So it can be really stressful, especially I think, like someone said, comparing themselves to others who've gotten placed and comparing with your friends who they might have done better or worse than you in academics in the last 4 years. So I think if you can get yourself to stop comparing and just focus on your own thing. I mean, I know it's hard to say when I couldn't do it, but like if you can actually do that, and then I think you'll be in a much better headspace going into placement season. And at the end of the day, like PS has a really good reputation when it comes to colleges coming in for, I mean, companies coming into college for placement. So you will all get placed somewhere or the other sooner or later. So there's no need to worry about it as much. The whole seventh and eighth semester is dedicated for that. So
Yeah, I think adding on to what Rajan said, don't lose heart because there are still placement opportunities that are coming right into eighth sem. So there's really no dearth of opportunities. There's stuff that's going to be coming every day. What you have to do is ensure that you've planned it properly, that you are checking your mails regularly, planning your schedules, because while you're writing tests and giving interviews on a daily basis, you have to continue reading up and ensuring that you've learned as much as possible. So you have to just be consistent with both things. Ensure that your coding is you're practicing your lead code, or reading up on topics that you're not very familiar with, learning how to present yourself or communicate in an interview. Just ensure that you've planned all of that properly and you're consistent with your efforts. So then I'm sure if that eventually something will work in your favor.
Yeah, guys, I'd say keep your mental health in check because it's very easy to like spiral and feel like everything is going against you. You'll sometimes feel like nothing is going your way. And you just have to have that belief that, firstly, belief in yourself, and nextly, belief in the process. You have to trust the process that this something will eventually go your way. And yeah, I think as Medha mentioned, our college is extremely helpful during the placement season. Our placement officers are Somashekar sir and Venkatesh sir, both are like, if you go talk to them and with any sort of queries, they'll definitely like sit down with you and like tell you about any sort of doubts you have about the placement process. So yeah, just just don't get disheartened. Keep your mental health in check. Talk to people about your concerns, about your worries, and like don't isolate yourself from your friends and things like that. Stop comparing. You can keep like don't break friendships or something like this. It's a very trivial thing in the long run. So yeah, that's all I have to say, guys.
Yeah, I think there's like five people from like our batch on this call, so you could hear like five perspectives. But in reality, like there's 2,000 students in our batch, so everybody is going to have their unique perspective and story. So there's 2,000 different stories, right? The fact that we could represent like our own stories here is just to provide consolation to you guys because it's extremely stressful. We all know it, but it's just to reassure that you will also have your own positive story in the semesters to come. So I hope all the tips that we had to share from our experiences were helpful to you guys. Just like Tyre said, trust the process and don't lose faith. I think everything you do in college is like a cumulus, it's like a building block of things that ultimately some way or the other help you in placements. And in fact, anything that you want to do once you get out of college. So this is just a small thing that you have to get past, and you will get past it 100%. All the very best, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. It was a very insightful discussion, and I can say from my side that I've learned a lot, and I'm sure all the people who joined us on this call today learned a lot as well.
In conclusion, the diverse experiences and valuable insights which our speakers have shared have left an indelible mark on our understanding regarding placements and internships, especially we as beginners are new to this world. And things start looking intimidating, and this talk, I think, is the start of we know how to start or go about our journey from here on. Your stories will be truly inspiring and will be helpful in fulfilling our future endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you guys. All the best.
All the best, guys.